You know those moments when you see a really young child just completely fascinated by something simple, like maybe the pattern on a leaf or just laughing while splashing in water?
Oh, absolutely. Pure, unfiltered wonder.
Exactly. And there's this light, this kind of purity there. It really makes you stop and think, well, where does that actually come from? And, what happens to it? Why does it seem to fade as we get older?
That's such a great question, and it leads us right into our deep dive today. We're exploring exactly the origins of that incredible childhood joy and wonder.
Okay.
And we're doing it through a really interesting short story, a cuento, by the Spanish author Joan Doménech Cardenachs. It's called The Awakening of the Divine Seed.
Ah, Cardenachs. Yeah, he writes a lot about self-knowledge, psychology, spirituality, that kind of thing, right?
Precisely. So this story fits perfectly. It sets this scene, an old master and his young apprentice, Alara, and they're talking under this ancient olive tree. Really profound stuff.
Sounds like a classic, almost timeless setup for wisdom sharing.
It really is. And the heart of their conversation, the thing we're really digging into, is the master's idea about something he calls the divine seed.
The divine seed.
Yeah. So our mission, if you will, for this deep dive is to unpack that concept. What is this seed? Why does it seem to get dimmer as we grow up? And the big question, can we actually reawaken it?
Right. Can we get that spark back? That resonates, I think, with that feeling we all sometimes have looking for those aha moments, that deeper understanding.
Exactly. It speaks to that core desire for insight.
Okay, so let's start with the seed itself, this divine seed. What does the master actually say it is?
Well, the master's view is pretty profound. He says newborns don't arrive empty. They come as these divine seeds,
Okay.
meaning they carry this original perfection, a
Oh.
kind of unbroken connection to the, well, he calls it the vast fabric of the universe.
The fabric of the universe, like the source of everything.
Yeah, exactly. The interconnectedness of it all. He uses different names for it, God, Tao, Brahman, primordial energy. But it all points to that fundamental unity, that source.
Mm-hmm.
And he has this beautiful phrase for newborns, living echoes of cosmic harmony.
Wow. Living echoes of cosmic harmony.
Hmm.
That really lands. It connects directly back to what we were saying about observing kids, doesn't it? That pure joy, that awe.
It really does.
Yeah.
The story suggests that purity, that intense wonder they have at the smallest things,
Mhm.
isn't just like a phase they go through.
Yeah.
It's a direct expression of this divine seed, this connection, when it's sort of unobscured in full bloom.
But then inevitably comes the question Alara asks in the story, which I think we all ask. If we start out like that, so connected, so bright, why does it seem to fade? Why does joy get harder to find and that sense of wonder kind of slip away?
That's the crux of it, isn't it? And the master's explanation is, well, it's quite insightful, maybe even a little uncomfortable. He says the fading starts almost right away.
Right away.
Through our interactions, our conditioning.
Hmm.
It starts, he argues, with the people closest to us, often our parents, acting out of love, but in ways that unintentionally begin to separate us from that essence.
Separate us. Wow. So not intentionally harmful, but having that effect.
Exactly. He gives these really common examples. Think about parents saying, no, don't touch that, you'll get hurt.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
Or don't run so fast, you'll fall. Or even, don't cry now, be strong. Things said out of genuine care and protection.
Of course. You want to keep your kids safe.
Right. But the master's point is that each of these warnings, these prohibitions, even though they come from love, plant what he calls small seeds of separation.
Small seeds of separation.
Yeah.
Okay. How does that work?
Well, they subtly teach the child that the world might be dangerous, that their natural impulses might be wrong or need to be checked, that their spontaneous feelings aren't always okay to express.
I see. So it starts building this idea that you can't fully trust yourself or the world, that you need to hold back.
Precisely. It begins to create this little gap, this distance between the child's inherent nature and how they learn they should be in the world. These small seeds, they accumulate.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I imagine school and society take over from there.
Absolutely.
Mm.
The story moves on to that next stage. The master describes how school and wider society then start to mold children, almost like clay,
Okay.
pressing them into these prefabricated molds of what a person should be like, what success looks like.
Right. The focus shifts dramatically, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it really does. Suddenly, it's about competition. Who's better, faster, smarter? It's about comparison, constantly measuring yourself against others.
And seeking approval from outside, right?
Yeah.
Grades, popularity, achievements.
Exactly. External validation becomes the goal rather than, say, inner contentment or following your own curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
We learn to look outside ourselves for confirmation of our worth.
So fitting the mold becomes more important than nurturing what's unique inside.
That's the argument.
Yeah.
And during this molding process, the story suggests, we internalize values that often clash with our innate wisdom. We're subtly trained to prioritize things like status or material gain over genuine connection or inner peace.
Hmm.
The master puts it quite starkly. We're essentially being prepared to become functional pieces in the machinery of a system.
Functional pieces. Wow, that sounds quite critical of the system itself.
It is, yeah. A system, he implies, that often values profit and power more than human connection and harmony with, well, with that cosmic fabric we talked about.
And he takes that critique even further, doesn't he? Mentioning governments and economic elites.
He does. He suggests that this whole conditioning process, this indoctrination, often ends up serving the interest of governments and powerful economic groups
How so?
by encouraging us to chase imposed goals, certain career paths, specific lifestyles, definitions of success that might not actually align with our deepest calling, our soul's purpose, but which do support the existing structures.
So we get steered away from our own inner compass towards goals set by others.
That's the idea. And a really crucial part of this, according to the master, is how it alienates us from the very things that originally nurtured that divine seed.
Ah, okay. Like what?
Things like quiet contemplation, silence, just being still, and importantly, a deep connection with nature. These are the sources, he says, that fed our spirit when we were born.
Right, the things that allow that inner echo of cosmic harmony to resonate.
Exactly. But the system often pushes us towards constant noise, activity, external stimulation, competition, the opposite of those nurturing states.
Okay, it paints a somewhat bleak picture, doesn't it? This gradual dimming, this layering over of our original light. You can see why Alara in the story starts to feel a bit hopeless, like maybe we're just doomed to be disconnected.
Yeah, it could definitely feel that way. And this is really important, the master's core message isn't one of despair. It's actually profoundly hopeful.
Oh, good. Okay, so what's the hope?
He tells Alara, basically, it's never too late. It's never too late to remember who we truly are deep down.
Phew. Okay.
He stresses that the divine seed isn't destroyed. It doesn't actually vanish. It just becomes latent, dormant, hidden beneath all those layers of conditioning we've picked up.
Like a seed buried in the ground, waiting.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
Waiting for the right conditions to sprout again.
All right, that's much more encouraging. So if it's still there, just dormant, how do we wake it up? What's the path back, the master suggests?
He lays out a kind of path, yes. And the very first step, the absolute foundation, he says, is consciousness.
Consciousness, meaning?
Meaning becoming aware. Really starting to see how we've been conditioned. Noticing the patterns, the automatic reactions, the beliefs we hold, maybe aren't even ours originally.
So step one is just noticing the programming, basically, waking up to how we've been shaped.
Exactly. You have to see the matrix, so to speak,
Yeah.
before you can change your relationship to it.
Okay. What comes after awareness?
From that awareness, the next step flows naturally. Identifying limiting beliefs. This is about digging a bit deeper.
Okay.
Uncovering those specific ideas we've internalized. Maybe things we were told as kids, messages from society, fears we picked up that hold us back, that limit our potential or our joy. Voices we mistake for our own truth.
Like those early don'ts maybe grew into bigger beliefs about not being good enough or the world being scary.
Precisely those kinds of things.
Right.
Beliefs that create internal barriers. And then comes the active part, what he calls mental cleansing.
Mental cleansing sounds intense.
It kind of is. It's the work of consciously shedding the layers. The masks we wear to fit in, the personas we've adopted, the roles we play that aren't really us.
Well, this is where Lara's analogy comes in, right? Peeling an onion.
Exactly. She compares it to peeling the layers of an onion. It's about stripping away everything that's not essential, everything that's not the authentic core.
That's a great image. It suggests it's a process, layer by layer.
It absolutely is. And as you peel back those layers, the next crucial step becomes possible. Listening to the heart.
Listening to the heart, meaning intuition, gut feelings.
Yes, essentially. Relearning to hear that quieter voice inside. The voice of intuition, of inner knowing that often gets completely drowned out by, the noise of the world, our own racing thoughts, other people's opinions.
Right, we're so busy, so distracted, it's hard to hear that subtle guidance.
Exactly. So it's about deliberately creating space for it, starting to trust it again, even if it contradicts the logical thing or what others expect.
Creating space, that seems key.
It really is. And finally, he talks about the importance of reconnecting,
Reconnecting with what?
primarily with nature, getting
Mm.
back in touch with the natural world, its rhythms, its cycles, and also reconnecting with the power of silence.
Ah, back to those nurturing elements we lost touch with.
Precisely. He sees nature and silence as essential environments for that divine seed to find nourishment again, to remember its connection to the larger cosmic harmony. It's like putting the seed back into fertile soil.
So it's awareness, identifying beliefs, shedding masks, listening within, and reconnecting with nature and silence. That's quite a path.
It is. And naturally, Alara, being a good student, asks if these ideas connect to older traditions. She mentions things like the Tao Te Ching, the Bible.
Yeah, that makes sense. It feels like these themes echo through a lot of ancient wisdom, doesn't it?
It really does. And the master confirms that connection. He says, yes, look at the Tao Te Ching. Its core message is about living in harmony with the Tao, the natural flow of the universe, letting go of ego.
Right, aligning with that fundamental energy.
Exactly. And the Bible, too, he suggests, at its heart, invites us to remember our divine origin, our connection to the sacred, to return to a state of lost innocence, basically, back to that unconditioned, divinely connected state.
So these aren't just some nice ideas from one story, but threads running through major spiritual paths.
That's his point. He emphasizes that essentially all the great spiritual traditions, when you look at their core teachings, are pointing towards this same fundamental process: awakening, remembering, and reconnecting with our true nature and the source of everything.
Okay, so this journey back, this reawakening,
Yeah.
the master calls it an inner journey. What does he say is needed for it? What does it demand of us?
He doesn't sugarcoat it.
Mm.
He says it requires real courage.
Courage. Why courage?
The courage to actually question everything you've been taught, to challenge beliefs you might have held your whole life, beliefs held by your family, your society. That takes guts.
Yeah, I can see that. Going against the grain.
Definitely. And it also requires humility. The humility to admit, okay, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe some of what I thought was true isn't. To acknowledge our own conditioning, our own ignorance, in a way.
Mm-hmm. Letting go of the need to be right or have all the answers.
Exactly. And finally, maybe most crucially, he says it takes perseverance, sticking with it, because it's not a quick fix, right? It's a path. There will be challenges, moments of doubt. You need to commit to that inner work.
So courage, humility, perseverance. It sounds like a deep personal undertaking.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
A journey of self-discovery, like you said earlier. Peeling those onion layers, facing maybe uncomfortable truths about ourselves and how we've been living.
But presumably the rewards are worth it.
Oh, immensely so, according to the master.
Yeah.
He speaks about the rewards in really compelling terms. First, there's the deep, profound peace that comes from finally living authentically, from aligning your life with who you truly are inside.
That alone sounds pretty amazing.
Doesn't it? Then there's the joy, not fleeting pleasure, but deep joy that blossoms when you reconnect with that inner source, that divine seed.
That original vibrant state.
Yes. And finally, he talks about love, an all-encompassing love that arises when you recognize your fundamental unity, your connection with all of existence, when the separation dissolves.
Wow. Peace, joy, and love. That's quite the destination for the inner journey.
It's a beautiful vision, isn't it, of what becomes possible when we dare to undertake that work of remembering and reconnecting.
Definitely. And how does the story end for Alara? Does she reach this state?
Well, the story ends with her sitting there, watching the sunset, really letting the master's words sink in. And she feels this deep resonance, like something ancient inside her is stirring.
An ancestral memory, the text calls it.
Yes, exactly. And a forgotten yearning. It's like the words triggered a memory of that original state. She has this realization: perfection isn't something you strive for outside yourself. It's already innate. It just needs to be remembered, uncovered, freed from all the conditioning piled on top.
So the potential is already within.
Yes. And she feels this surge, this puncture of hope, as the story puts it. A real certainty that the path back, the journey to reconnect with her divine essence, is actually possible. And she understands deeply that her real learning is just beginning.
That's a powerful place to end, not with everything solved, but with the path opening up, full of possibility. It really emphasizes that this is an ongoing journey.
Exactly. A journey of remembering.
Okay, so wrapping this up for everyone listening, the core idea from this deep dive into the awakening of the divine seed is really potent. We start life with this incredible divine seed, pure potential, connected, full of wonder. But then life happens. Conditioning from well-meaning parents, from school, from society layers over it, like clouds covering the sun. We learn to conform, compete, seek external approval, and we can lose touch with that inner light.
Right, leading to feelings of disconnection, maybe a sense that something's missing.
But the really hopeful message here is that the seed isn't gone, it's just dormant, and there's
Yeah.
a path to reawaken it.
Yes, through conscious awareness of our conditioning, identifying those limiting beliefs, doing that mental cleansing, peeling the onion, learning to listen to our heart's intuition again, and actively reconnecting. Reconnecting with nature, with silence, with that deeper part of ourselves.
So as you're thinking about all this, maybe reflect for a moment. What part of this idea of an inherent divine seed resonates most with you? Can you recall moments of that pure childhood wonder?
Yeah, and maybe consider gently what layers might have accumulated over your own seed. What conditioning might be subtly influencing how you see yourself in the world. No judgment, just gentle awareness.
It definitely sparks some deep reflection, doesn't it? And it leads to this thought. Maybe the most important knowledge isn't actually learned from outside. Maybe it's remembered from within.
I like that. Not learned, but remembered.
So the final thought we'd love to leave you with is this. Building on that idea of remembering, what's one small thing, maybe even tiny, you could do today or this week to nudge yourself towards reconnecting?
Yeah, reconnecting with your own sense of wonder, perhaps. Or listening just a bit more closely to that quiet inner voice. Or maybe just finding 5 minutes of silence or stepping out into nature.
That forgotten yearning, what spark of that divine seed might be waiting just beneath the surface, ready to be rediscovered within you?